ask the Minister for Home Affairs when his department intends to implement the domestic abuse pathway and what budget he has for this.
On the Minister for Home Affairs to reply.
Mr Deputy President, the domestic abuse pathway was endorsed by the Safeguarding Children Board in October 2016. The implementation of this was not a department responsibility, but was shared under the safeguarding agenda. And the accepted position on that safeguarding is everybody's business. The Safeguarding Board is prioritising domestic abuse for its plan for this year, and it was envisioned that the pathway will be updated and reviewed quite soon. I actually believe there is a meeting of the Safeguarding Board tomorrow, and I'm hoping to see some progress on this matter. I think it's worth for the Honourable Member to know that safeguarding does not fall entirely within my department. Health, education, public health, DHA and the constabulary all contribute to the pathway. And the Honourable Member will be aware that we are out of consultation at the moment with regard to domestic violence, and I would urge anybody who has any views on the subject to go online and make your views known to us, so when we come forward with the legislation, hopefully early next year, that it's right. We have your views.
On to your question, Mrs. Corlett.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. I thank the Minister for his answer. The pathway was endorsed by Safeguarding Board in 2016, but we're now in 2018 and it seems nothing has materialised in between. Funding will need to be available to train staff in order to progress it. Is the Minister saying this is down to the Safeguarding Board, or actually does the Minister feel there's a lack of commitment to the pathway?
Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. Well, I wasn't actually in a position in October for that. I do agree with the Honourable Member that things have gone slow and it is time to speed things up. With regard to costing does not fall again under my department. Costing will be done across all 4 departments who are involved in safeguarding. And all I can reassure the Honourable Member is I will be driving this forward in the near future, and there is a meeting tomorrow of the Safeguarding Board. It is their priority for this year, so there's been a lot of publicity with regard to domestic violence, and I'm sure that this will help us to push things forward a bit faster.
Question, Mrs. Corlett.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Could I ask the Minister, reports of domestic abuse are increasing, and would the Minister agree that there's no clear strategy to tackle it? Does he agree that a joint strategic needs assessment is required in order to determine what the needs are and how to address them? And would he agree, as he has actually, that cross-departmental working and collaboration is absolutely necessary?
Minister to reply.
Mr Deputy President, that's exactly what the Safeguarding Board is, across the departmental. What I do believe is that the legislation is too weak with regard to domestic violence, and that's why we are out in consultation, and that's why it's very important that we get new legislation giving new powers to the police so that we can cope with domestic violence much swifter and much better for the future. Again, I mentioned before with the last question, the Chief Constable's report, when it comes out, will show that crime in the Isle of Man is up ever so slightly, but it's two main areas. It's cannabis possession and domestic violence. So my department takes both of these extremely seriously, and that's why I will carry on driving this forward. I don't want to see my reports coming out from the Chief Constable saying crime's gone up in the Isle of Man, when it's in certain areas. We have to approach that and see what we can do.
Supplementary question, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. Does the Minister agree with me that it would be very helpful for the Department of Home Affairs to put this issue on the next agenda for the Social Policy and Children's Committee, because this is a classic case of departments needing to work together? And furthermore, does the Minister agree with me that at the next meeting, when the safeguarding chair, the new safeguarding chair, will appear before that committee, it would be a perfect opportunity to raise this issue and to see where we are in terms of that pathway?
Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President, and I thank the Honourable Member, and I do totally agree that it is something for the Children Policies Committee, Social Policy Committee, and I read the email 10 minutes ago as well that the new safeguarding chair is actually going to be at that meeting. Unfortunately, I will be unable to attend, so I certainly hope it will be driven forward at the department at that meeting.
Supplementary question, Mrs. Beecroft.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I was a little bit concerned to hear the Minister just refer to domestic violence. The question actually refers to domestic abuse pathway, and would the Minister agree that domestic abuse covers an awful lot more than just violence? Would he further agree that research has showed that I think it is off the top of my head, for every £1 spent preventing domestic abuse saves the coffers of government £8. So it's money well invested in what is an area that should be of a very high priority, both on humane grounds and on financial grounds for the government as a whole.
Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. I'm happy to stand up and agree with the honourable member, and I apologise because domestic abuse covers an whole range of different areas. And so I totally apologise for saying domestic violence, because there is a much wider scope for it. And of course, the sooner we can get to grips with this, as I've kept saying, because our statistics are showing that it's increasing in the Isle of Man, we need to get on with the legislation, we need to get on with the Safeguarding Board, we need to get on top of the issues that we have. So you have my total support.
Supplementary question, Mrs Corlett.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. Could I just re-ask the Minister whether a needs assessment is required, firstly, and would the Minister agree that the current approach to domestic abuse is reacting to crisis rather than intervention, and the domestic abuse pathway would address this, but investment is required? Would he agree that there is a value, following on from Mrs Beecroft, to resolving issues before they reach crisis point in social as well as financial terms?
Minister to reply.
Mr Deputy, I would agree that that's up to the Safeguarding Board to do the review and take it forward, but I strongly believe that the new legislation will give us the early intervention that the honourable member is talking about, because there will be methods within the new legislation of early intervention to try and stop some of this domestic abuse from snowballing. So again, I appeal, if you've got some information or want to look at the new legislation, please let us have your ideas. And when we come to review, because I think it finishes in August, about another 3 weeks to go, I would encourage everybody to look at it and tell us, what your views are. I can say at this particular time, I'm looking at splitting the legislation because of some of the comments that have come forward, and that might be a separate bill. I can't commit to that at this time because I haven't had all the consultation documents back, but I have a very open mind on this subject, Mr Deputy President, and it's something I really do want this legislation driven forward. It totally has my support.